Hey everyone, my name is Nate Perea, and I'm a account executive here at Smartsheet. Been with Smartsheet for about 8.5 years, and most of that time I've spent working in the higher education vertical specifically. I'm here to get things kicked off today for our spotlight on a solution that we have deployed for capital construction and capital projects at several universities, and we'll get us going here uh, into today's webinar. First and foremost, very entertaining and interesting slide here is just some legal disclaimers. Some of you might be shareholders in Smartsheet, and we just need to let you know that uh, some of the things we look at today might be forward-looking, and we don't advise making financial decisions based off of the contents of today's webinar. So we need to go over that first. So first of all, we'd like to welcome you to today's webinar. Thank you for joining us. We hope it and we believe it's going to be very valuable for you. We do want to make it interactive, so please, throughout the webinar, if you have questions, whenever they come up, put them in the Q&A button there on the bottom right of your screen. We've got some folks that are going to be monitoring that in real time and answering your questions as they come up. We'll also make sure there's some time for Q&A later on in the webinar. And if we don't get to questions today, we definitely will follow up with you. So please submit those in real time. We definitely want to hear from you and make sure that we get those answered. Today's agenda real quickly for the webinar. Introduction. We're going to talk about managing capital construction projects in Smartsheet in general, sort of an overview of that type of a solution. We're going to talk about a streamlined change order management process in Smartsheet using what we call our document builder. We're going to talk about integrating data from external systems for budget management. We know this is a big one for folks managing construction projects. So we'll talk about that. And we're really, really excited to hear today from a guest speaker, a return guest speaker, Neil Murphy, president of OCMI. Neil's been instrumental in helping us with a lot of these capital construction project solutions, and he'll share a little bit of his expertise. And then we'll have a closing and Q&A session at the end. So real quickly, for some of you that may be not familiar with Smartsheet, maybe some of you are joining and hearing about Smartsheet for the very first time, this is a very, very high level overview of what Smartsheet is and how we help institutions of higher education just in general, regardless of how you're using Smartsheet for, because there's so many different ways you can use the platform. So to orient some of you new folks real quickly to Smartsheet, where we operate a lot in higher ed is helping to streamline operations, really improve visibility and collaboration. And we want to make sure we address this today related to capital projects, having that real-time visibility into work and allowing people to collaborate through the platform very seamlessly. And then lastly, we really strive to empower teams to create their own solutions, create and manage their own solutions, so that you can do it in very user-friendly ways to engage with the platform, but also to create solutions in the platform too. So just to give you a real high overview if you're not familiar with Smartsheet here. Okay, now when it comes to managing capital construction projects, we know these are some of the main challenges that we hear about out there, and that we've learned from our customers over time, working with various departments, whether it's in universities or otherwise. The big one, budget visibility into project costs. We want to provide you with as real-time information as humanly possible so you can see where you're at in projects, spend to budget in real time. And I know this has been a big topic for Neil, which we'll hear from him in a bit about this. But yeah, making sure those projects are staying on time and on budget, really, really key. We know that there's a challenge of working within disparate systems. You've got a contractor working one way, financial department working another way, your internal team working one way. So with Smartsheet, we know we've had to address this challenge for construction groups. Also the lack of flexibility with canned solutions. As we noted a little bit earlier, Smartsheet is a very flexible platform because we can be used in so many different ways. And that flexibility really lends itself nicely to capital construction because We don't want you to be constrained by some other system that you've had to use in the past. We know that there's always this striving for continuous improvement in real time as things change. You've got to be able to make decisions and then project over project, refine and get better. We also know there's a lot of repetitive and manual administrative tasks that we want to help you automate. Another big part of the Smartsheet platform is the ability to create automation and workflows. And then those milestone tracking visibility is a really big deal. We want to make sure that you know when you're about to hit those milestones and hopefully do so early. But if we're going to be late, we also know that that's a challenge too. So we want to be able to manage that. So in our solution that and actually there's many different solutions we've deployed with different universities and capital construction groups. Big one, like we mentioned, project funding tracking. We're going to talk about how do you get that information in from your other systems really seamlessly into Smartsheet. Then you can manage that real-time management of budget versus actuals. We're going to talk about the overview of kicking off and delivery tracking of construction projects and how we can do that very seamlessly for you in an automated fashion. And then again, the automation of RFI, submittal, and change order workflows. We'll focus on that here in a little bit. So we know that this has been very valuable for several key customers. So lastly, for my portion of this, I'm going to introduce you to our guest speaker who we'll hear from a little bit later on in the program, Neil Murphy with OCMI. I think his resume here speaks for itself as to he's highly qualified to talk to you about the construction management piece of this. Neil's been doing this for over 20 years, has extensive construction management experience. Also, a very extensive Smartsheet expert. Been using Smartsheet since 2017. And Neil and I actually first came in contact when he was getting started working on a project at San Diego State University. San Diego State's Capital Projects Group had purchased Smartsheet. They were kind of up and running a little bit in a very sort of basic way, getting started. Neil's group engaged with them as a consultant and very quickly developed a really robust solution for San Diego State to manage very large projects. And in that process, Neil and I connected, and I thought, hey, this is really something that looks like it's working very well. We could probably do this again for other departments. So Neil and I have worked together for several years with other universities and other construction departments. Neil's done a fantastic job, and he's uniquely positioned to provide Smartsheet expertise as well as the construction expertise. So we're really, really excited to have Neil joining us today for the program. So what I'm going to do now is I am going to hand it over to my colleague, Angie, and Angie is going to take us from here through a tour of the Smartsheet solution overview and walk us through some of those key components. Angie, I'll hand it to you.
Perfect. Thanks, Nate. Let me share my screen. Okay. So today, like Nate said, we're going to be walking through not San Diego State's, solution itself, but what we will be showing you is our best in practice, what we recommend when we think about these really high-level, complex problem solutions where there's a lot of different stakeholders involved, a lot of different groups that need to stay in the know, but also have different levels of permission and visibility. And how do we bring this all together? So with that, thinking about that overall solution, some of the challenges are that it's really hard to course correct and make necessary changes when you are working with this many different stakeholders and audiences and so many different moving pieces. There's a lot of repetition and administrative tasks that, quite frankly, could be, people's time is valuable and you all have a lot of great skills. So realistically, your time is better spent not copying and pasting and doing things that we can automate. And then, like Nate alluded to, really that lack of visibility into the milestones and overall health of the project. So to put all of this together and create a solution that is going to be really easy and seamless and create the right permissions for the right audience is a tool called Control Center. Control Center is going to allow us to really scale as our project's volume and complexity scales. So creating some standardization around execution. And then we'll talk about this in more detail too, but really being able to anticipate that nothing is set in stone, things are going to change. And so how can we use a tool that is going to allow us to change really easily and be flexible and nimble so that those don't become greater hindrances than they need to. So with that, let's dive into the demo. We are going to, again, talk about that solution from the beginning all the way to the end. So thinking about from intake, how do we kick off projects? What does the execution look like? And then finally ending with that portfolio solution. And I accidentally did these slides in a couple places. So before we get into the intake part, I wanted to lay out kind of the structure of what you're going to be seeing today. And I know this is small, I promise I will zoom in, but there's three main layers. So down here is that intake project layer. Mid layer, this may be where you've got departments, and then the top layer is going to be that portfolio reporting. So how does everything roll up together? So there may be bid information or estimation information that you're collecting from somewhere else. We're not going to touch on that a ton today, but we will be able to highlight how you can incorporate that if this is something that you're doing or want to do in Smartsheet. But realistically, we'll be starting from that intake process. We've got our list of projects. Is there an approval process or any sort of back and forth? How can we make collaboration really easy? And then that standardization piece. How do we make sure that every time we kick off a project, everyone's operating from the same foundation so that when we do need to roll up and report either by department or division and then portfolio reporting, that is going to be automatic and seamless. So with that, let's start with our intake piece. This is a dashboard that is our intake dashboard, and it is running off of, as this loads, a single sheet. So we'll see here that we've got a form. And again, you may not be collecting project requests for capital construction from a form. They may be coming, maybe you're pulling them from another system. That's fine. Smartsheet can handle it in a bunch of different ways. But one thing I did want to mention is kind of the flexibility of the tool in general. While we are talking about capital construction, this is same process could be used just as easily for work order requests or maintenance requests, things like that. And so with a form, when people fill it out, you can have one form, even if it is for both capital construction and work orders. We can have conditional logic built in so that as people are filling it out, if it's a high priority, we need them to add some justification. Why is this a high priority? Or if it's a specific project type, now we need them to require to upload files. You know, maybe it's a research charter or some of the research they've done, or maybe for this, it's a land study or survey in order to kick off the project. So in the same way that we can use conditional logic to our advantage for capital construction, we can also use this for that bigger picture of, depending maybe on project type, you would have one for work orders, and then it's going to be a different set of questions. But because everything is coming into a single location, we're able to create these high-level metrics so that you can have a better view of what your pipeline is, what are all of your teams working on, kind of what's contributing to that overall bandwidth and capacity of your teams. So if we open up this sheet, this is where all of the data from that form is flowing into. So again, this is a lot of information, and so that's the other benefit of a dashboard. Not everyone needs this level of detail and access. So we can use a dashboard to create that curated experience for different audiences, where everyone still has the right level of information they need to get the work done, but we're not overloading them and making it hard to search through or sift through data. And they also don't accidentally see things that they shouldn't. The other benefit here is the different views. So I'm looking at this, like a traditional spreadsheet in our grid view, but I can also look at this in card view. So I can see all of our projects that are approved. We're really lucky. Everything we work on is getting approved. But I could also look at this priority and see that breakdown. Or if I wanted to look at this by project lead or project manager, now I can see, Alexandra is only leading one project, whereas Lori is leading 6. So why is there that discrepancy? Is it because Lori's projects are smaller projects? Or do we just have a bandwidth issue and we need to reallocate, some of our projects and resources? So most likely you all have this data today. We're just trying to put it in a format where we can take that and make it more actionable. So that, again, this is going to be a tool that is flexible and moves with you. The other thing here that I think we see is really helpful when we talk about these large scale projects and working with a lot of different teams is the ability to collaborate in a lot of different ways. So one of these may be if you are doing this for work orders, say, or even capital projects, and there's some information that is missing or you're not sure is quite accurate, instead of sending emails and having them attach spreadsheets and having everything in 4 different places, I can do a one-off and say, let me send an update request. So I can send this to, I'll send it to myself, but I could send this to anyone I needed to, internal or external. And then I can include as many or as few columns that I want that individual to provide an update on. So maybe I want them to provide an update on, planned end date, or maybe what this program is for, or general health. We're starting to dip red and I need an update there. So I can send that and they'll be able to provide those updates without ever having to access the sheet. So again, a great tool if both you're thinking about project approvals and kind of pre-kickoff, but also even during execution if you're working with folks who may be external and you don't even want to share the sheet with them. So a lot of different ways to collaborate and keep that centralized location for everything. So what we've just seen between that intake dashboard and the intake sheet is how to leverage a consistent process to import data and really focus on what matters, so that when you do kick off a project, you have everything you need to kick off that project seamlessly, where all of the details are accurate and when that project kicks off, it's going to have everything it needs to be successful, and the data is going to be accurate because it's been easy to collaborate throughout that sheet. So that brings us on to scale and maintain. And let's take a look at how we can then standardize that process. So if we go back to our logic model, we've really just focused on this intake and approval process. Now we're going to focus on, okay, how do we create that standardization for the toolkit so that when we kick off projects, we're, again, all operating from that same foundation. To do that, we're going to actually look at a couple slides. And so the first is Control Center. So what Control Center does, I know we touched on this a little bit, that visibility and consistency, but it's going to take our toolkit. So everything we had in our logic model, say for every project, we want a dashboard, we want a project schedule, a budget. For you all, maybe, we're tracking procurement and RFIs and submittals. And instead of one massive spreadsheet that just gets way too overwhelming, we can have individual sheets for each of these different elements, but put it all together and create what we call a blueprint or a toolkit, so that every time a project does kick off, we're going to have all of those pieces. The other thing that it's going to do is it's going to take all of this approved data that we've got and automatically map it to each of these assets. So again, when we think about cost saving, time saving, eliminating manual entry, this is going to do that for you. What it also does on top of time saving is it eliminates any, manual error potentials, because everything Smart Control Center is filtering that out for you and pushing all of that data to the right places. And so then that allows you to kick off projects really quickly without ever having to miss a beat. And this can also all be automated, where every time a project is approved, Control Center will say, great, let's go ahead and spin up that project. I'm going to show you this, we're showing this sort of manually today, but this would all be a process that's automated for you. And so again, what that does is it names every single piece of the toolkit. It carries over that relevant data. It shares the assets to the right people. So if you've got every project is going to have its own workspace, that means that, again, if you're working with outside folks, or even you're working with different teams internally, that's totally fine. Smartsheet is going to be able to take all of those pieces and share them to the right audience. So we think about governance structure a little bit. You can trust that not only is the data accurate because we're eliminating places for manual entry, but it's also going to be secure because only the right people are going to have access. And then the other pieces that we're going to talk about more specifically now is this piece called global updates and archiving. So with global updates, it is inevitable that a change is going to happen. Even if you have the most perfect process, realistically, there's going to be, a new metric that you need to capture, or you're working with a specific team and they have something that's slightly different than your typical process. What global updates allows you to do is kick off a project, and even mid-project say, I need to add a column to the sheet. I need to add a metric to our dashboard for better visibility. Instead of just updating that toolkit that we talked about, we can do that. It's really easy to update that blueprint, but that is only helpful for all future projects. So if you have 100 projects in flight and you want a new metric on your dashboard, that means you're going to have to update a sheet with a column, most likely updating a report and updating that dashboard. So that's potentially 300 places that you need to make that update. Smartsheet is a no-code platform, so it's not hard to do that, but 300 places is very time-consuming and realistically not the best use of people's time. So global updates pushes out that change, not just to the blueprint, but to all active projects in flight. So that's a really powerful tool. I worked with one customer who, it was actually capital construction. They only had one project, but it was going to be a 5-year, multi-million-dollar project. And they knew because of the length of that project, there were going to be so many different changes throughout the life of that project that to make all of the appropriate changes in all of the necessary places for a 5-year project was just absolutely unrealistic. So they actually purchased Control Center just for this single feature. I just think that that really speaks to how valuable of a piece this really is, especially when you think about these really large scale projects. And then the last piece is being able to auto archive as well. So being able to, as soon as the project closes out, again, setting up that structure and governance for what does that mean? Where does this project go? So that when we do look at our data for active projects, projects that are closed out and no longer being active or worked on aren't muddying that data, but also helping resources. So we don't think that people are assigned to these projects when really they're closed out and they could be working on other things. So, let's go back up to our roadmap. So that's really, the Control Center kicking off projects, but then the global updates and the archiving, how Smartsheet is going to be a tool that will grow and evolve as your processes grow and evolve, or even projects change, and be a tool that will not sit on the shelf and grow dust, but continue to meet you where you're at. And so then when we are kicking off a project, what does that actually look like? So that we can, get an example of everything we've just talked about. As this loads, we're going to look at an example of a project dashboard. So we've achieved that consistency through project kickoff. And now every time a project kicks off, it is going to have these different, they're all going to have this dashboard. And it's this connected environment. So when we think about our toolkit, every project is going to have its own schedule, its own budget, its own, owner, architect, contractor, RFI, submittals, all of that is in one place. So we've got a centralized location where folks working with us and on our teams and on these projects don't have to go anywhere else to get this done. They are going to have everything they need in one place. So they're not going to be wasting time looking for this additional information. At a high level, we can see some metrics around what's open, where are we within this process, what's our budget look like? We're, under budget or over budget, sorry. So why is that? What do we need to be focused on, or how do we get back on track? Being able to see key tasks and metrics and milestones. I was working with another customer on a capital improvement project, and they specifically wanted that 3-week look ahead report because working with external folks, again, you're not always sharing everything, but you need to let people know what's coming down the pipeline so that people are prepared and schedules are set up accordingly. So being able to have everything here in one place. If we open up the schedule, we can take a look at this specifically. And it's really easy to have everything again in one place. So when we were looking at our intake sheet, we were looking at this in grid and then card view. You can just as easily look at this in Gantt view and start to get a timeline of when all of these pieces are working together or falling together. Just like traditional project management software, Smartsheet can handle predecessors, duration, baselining, being able to keep all of that kind of waterfall cadence in place so that teams can actively work on the different pieces simultaneously. The other nice thing here is I can attach a file to a specific row. And I can attach from multiple places. So I can upload from my own desktop, but I could also link to a specific URL from Google, OneDrive, Box, you name it. So what that's going to allow me to do, again, creating that data relevancy. We're all working from the same data. If I am attaching a link, that means that anytime someone accesses this file from Smartsheet, we're all going to be using the same version. I've worked at places where there's 4 different versions of Excel running around in different tabs and things saved in email, and you just never know where anything is or if what you're working on is the most recent version. Smartsheet allows you to get past that. Like I can see, I can attach a file to this specific row, but if say, this is probably more project management related, but like there's a project charter or something, maybe, a blueprint doc or something like that, that is going to be not necessarily task specific, but more related to the entire project, I can attach files to the sheet as well. So again, regardless of where or what the files are relating to, it's all going to be centralized and in a single location. The other way that Smartsheet makes it really easy to collaborate is conversations. So in the same way that I can mention people we're so used to now with chat and Slack or Teams, I can also do that in Smartsheet and say, hey, @Nate Perea, please review. And Nate will get notified in his email. He'll get notified in Smartsheet, and he can get notified directly in Slack or Teams as well. And regardless of where Nate chooses to respond, whether that is email, Teams, Slack, Smartsheet, All of that will be captured right here in this conversation panel. So again, we're not going to have a separate email thread and, attach even emails to a document or to a spreadsheet. Even if they respond in email, we will still have that audit trail to know exactly what has happened, when it's happened, how did we get here. We've got timestamps, date stamps, and so being able to keep track of if a change is made in a project, not any ill will, but sometimes, people are doing a million different things. We're just not sure why or how that change got made. So if I need to do that, I can, look at, if there was one, view cell history. And now I can see if there were multiple changes, when they were made, who made them, why they were made. Same thing, we've got our activity log. Now I can search for specific types of actions across the entire sheet, not just a specific cell. So I know, especially in these really large scale projects, having that audit log, whether it is in conversations, whether it is in a specific cell or for the project at large, is going to be really helpful. Especially right now, we're just talking about the project, tracking pieces itself, but budget. All of these same elements are going to apply whether you're looking at a project sheet or whether you're looking at a budget sheet. And we'll get more into the budget later throughout the presentation, but just wanted to highlight that all of this still applies. Similarly, we can have, setting up, if it's RFIs, we can set up different automations so that when a new RFI comes in, I can alert someone that, hey, this RFI needs approving, or we can set up reminders every week. Hey, please go in and review if you have any open RFIs that need either approval or follow-ups or attachments, etc. So there's a lot of different ways that you can set up, I call it crockpot project management, but set it and forget it. You can set up these automations in advance in that toolkit so that every time a project kicks off, it is going to have all of these alerts and reminders baked in so that you don't have to set calendar reminders and your own alerts to say, I need to follow up with so-and-so. Smartsheet is going to know that this is what that process needs and send those reminders and alerts out on your behalf. The other piece here that I wanted to talk about is, again, we're working externally a lot of times with contractors and outside folks. So being able to keep track of all of your tasks. Now, this is what we call a My Work or current user dashboard. But when I log in, I am seeing all of the tasks that I am assigned to. So even if it is across multiple projects, because we're living in this connected environment through Control Center, all of our projects are connected. And so I can run a report that looks at all of this, and I can see everything that I need to focus on. So I don't have to click through 5 different tabs on the 5 different projects I'm working on. And I'm sure that's a generous understatement. I'm sure you all are working on more than that. And so I can have everything right at my fingertips. If I'm leading a project, I can see, again, everything that I'm working with. Erica's going to get into this in a little bit more detail, but being able to share this externally, I can start to see what I'm working on. And again, from a governing body, set some guardrails around what cells and columns, what rows are visible, and what is even available to edit. So being able to share that with your external contractors is huge. And again, being able to identify those risks and issues. So if I am working on 5+ projects, it's really easy for me to prioritize my time and know exactly what I need to be working on. And then, we put it all together and this is our project. So anytime a change is made in our schedule or our budget or any of these other places, all of our metrics are going to update. I don't have to make that update in 5 different places or 3 different places because Smartsheet is that connected place. So even if we're pulling in data from different sources, which, again, we'll talk about in a different section, but Smartsheet's going to recognize that, and our dashboards will still automatically update. And then that leads us to this final piece is once we've kicked off our project, so we've got our project spun up, we're working on it. Now, how do we get that portfolio reporting and our department reporting automated? So what this is going to do is if we look, well, the slide where you can kick off 5 different projects really easily within the span of a couple minutes. So because of that, we can now have a portfolio roll-up dashboard where I can see all of the different projects in my portfolio at any given time. I can see the types of projects. I can see what they're working on, or what that distribution is. If I wanted to understand at a high level, like, oh man, our sustainability initiative projects have a lot of open issues. What's going on there? I can open up that dashboard and drill down specifically into projects that are related only to that program. So you have a lot of flexibility in how you want to set up that governance or reporting structure of what is the right visibility, what is the right breakdown for how we're sharing out data and how we're organizing the data, so that people don't have to spend a lot of time searching for it. They're able to get the right level of drill down really easily. The same thing goes for our reports. Right now, I'm looking at all of our projects as they relate to health, but Smartsheet is a really intuitive tool. So when we think about something that is easy to share, it's easy to learn, that means that you're going to be able to get up and running a lot quicker, and you're not going to spend nearly as much time in other tools training that you would with Smartsheet. And so you can start to see some of those wins and benefits really quickly. An example here, I've got a report. Again, we're looking at this by health. But if I wanted to look instead by priority, make sure we're working on the right things, 2 clicks. Now it's the same report, it's the same data, but it's reorganized itself. It now tells a different story so that we can make sure that we're focused on the right things. And that's, again, kind of like we talked about with that intake process is, you probably have all of this data today living somewhere. But the problem is it's probably living in 4 different places and different levels of permission, and you spend a lot of time requesting access, or, why do you need access, or not even knowing who to go to get access. Smartsheet brings it all together so that we can see all of our projects. When are they landing on the calendar? Do we need to shift projects around to make sure, again, we have the right bandwidth for the resources at our disposal? Or does it make sense to move projects to a different time? What this does by having everything here, it makes your data actionable so that now you can make sure you can ask better questions and get the right answers, and you trust your data because you're not updating it in 4 different places or 5 different places. Whoever is working on that project, they update it there and they go once and they go on their business. They go about their day. But this portfolio dashboard is going to automatically update so that whether it's, presidents or board or whoever is looking at it, they're going to have accurate information and they can trust what they're looking at, so that the decisions they make are also going to be stronger decisions. And that kind of, in a nutshell, really is how we can pull all of this together to be able to, again, create that tool that is flexible, that is agile, that is going to scale with you using these global updates. You'll be able to reduce a lot of time spent on whether it's administrative tasks, whether it's copying and pasting, whether it's even alerting people and sending out reminders. All of that is going to really drive efficiency, which is going to save time and money. And then again, creating that visibility so that the decisions you're making are the right decisions based off of data that is true, and not data that is old or maybe missing elements. It's, you're going to be able to allow people to work however they work best in those tools, but still bring it together for that bigger picture, holistic visibility. And I do want to pause here. I know I spoke, I'm sorry, for a very long time, but I want to pause and see if there's questions from the folks on my team who are answering the chat, if there's anything we need to bubble up for the audience at large, or Neil too, if you've got some thoughts and comments about kind of how you've seen this tool used in your own experience, in your own practice.
Yeah, thanks, Anne. From a control center perspective, in most higher education institutions that our firm works with, we know that there are usually different processes for varying project types, be they larger capital projects, that might mainly use P6 or Primavera for schedule analysis, monthly updates and things like that, versus, smaller maintenance or major maintenance project that might use Microsoft Project or even a schedule built within Smartsheet. Because they need more rapidly deployed elements, and they might even be working within different groups within the overall university organization, to work on the different project types. But with Control Center, you can have a fully customized and separate architecture built out for each of these different workflow types, whether it's a job order contract delivery versus construction manager at risk or design build delivery. Each of these project types could be deployed within your group using a separate architecture to allow rapid deployment of new projects that could then immediately integrate into your enterprise tracking. And then, of course, when projects complete and close out, project archiving is also a simple process, which is a great benefit of Control Center.
Awesome, thank you, Neil. And for folks on the line, Joe or anyone, if there are questions, or Britt, that make sense to bubble up with the group at large, any questions that you're getting a lot of similar questions that make sense to answer?
Yeah, I think around along a similar line in terms of like the templates and the different types of work, just sort of a general call out in relation to services is you don't have to operate alone here. We have a services team that has built out these solutions for lots of different customers, and I think an overall theme of Smartsheet is that it's going to be super configurable. So there's not necessarily a one size fits all for everyone. So talk to your account representative. They're happy to discuss that with you if it makes sense to get our services team involved. If you're just looking for some guidance, whatever it might be, we can make sure that we right size that conversation and solution for you. But overall, want to make sure it's clear here. If this seems overwhelming or a lot to take on in terms of build, we are here to assist with that.
Awesome, thanks, Joe. And with that, I will pass it to Erica.
Thank you, Angie. Great. Hi, everyone. My name is Erica, and I will be covering how we can simplify the change order request process by utilizing Forms and Document Builder to easily submit, track, and sign change order requests while providing updates and context to everyone involved. Please keep in mind that we're focusing on a very specific use case for this session, but we'll also call out additional examples of how Smartsheet can be utilized across other use cases involving these tools. Also, a quick reminder, please use the Q&A button to ask questions as we're moving through the demo. We have some great people with industry experience and extensive Smartsheet knowledge that we can answer your questions live as we go through. So starting off, I wanted to cover the context of change order requests. We'll be addressing how we can utilize different tools within Smartsheet to streamline and simplify this process. As we all know, changes are inevitable in construction, like how you never truly know what is behind a wall until you open it up. But at least we can make the change order request process seamless, so you have one less thing to keep track of on your projects. To do this, Angie covered it a little bit, but we will also be using Dynamic View. It is a tool that allows you to manage multi-step processes by sharing only what is needed to the right people at the right time for viewing and editing. In this context, we will be protecting sensitive information such as contingency balances, budget changes, additional change order requests with identity-based access, giving a contractor access only to the information that is relevant to their change orders. From there, we'll simplify that information by enabling contractors to have access to additional documents and be able to see all of those contracts in one single location. And then finally, we will streamline the document management process as the owner or owner's representative by automatically sending out a DocuSign with the necessary information of that change order request, reducing the need for duplicate documentation and consolidating all of those change order requests in one single location. Jumping into our demo. First, we'll be starting off as the contractor submitting a new change order request. And then once that request has gone through, we'll also be taking the role of the owner or the owner's representative to see where all of those change order requests live and how we can manage that information utilizing automation and other tools within Smartsheet. So starting off as the contractor, I can come to a single dashboard that is shared out to me on project initiation, where I have my form to the left to log all of my change order requests. Angie covered some great points around our forms, and I just want to go over a few extra spots regarding the change order request process. I've gone ahead and pre-filled this form just because a change order request does require lots of points of information. Anything with the red asterisks is required information, so I've gone and filled out this change order request for paint color changes, needing a new paint order based on the owner's decision. So we've gone ahead and filled out all of our necessary documentation regarding that change order. And additionally, I can then upload my file. So maybe I want to attach a paint order receipt to justify the cost changes. I can do that here and submit this form. Additionally, our forms are mobile friendly with offline capabilities. So if you have contractors, that work from a tablet or a cell phone, they can submit these forms directly from there. And it can also be done when you don't have service, cell phone service. So commonly, I have worked with customers who utilize these forms for our field workers that need to log information where they may not have cell service. They can do so, and then all of those forms will populate as soon as they reach service again. So from there, I just submit that change order request form, and all of that standardized information will automatically transfer over into the sheet. And on the right here is my view of all of my past change orders that I have requested. And if I reload this frame, then we will see that new change order request populate through. So at the top line here, I have my new change order request I have done. It hasn't been approved yet, and I can see all the necessary information regarding that change order and where it is in the process, as well as the envelope status for the DocuSign, which we'll get into here in a bit. From here, I still have access to my attachments that I've uploaded for reference, as well as the ability to see the information I have submitted. It has automatically gone and assigned a change order request number and filled out all of the necessary information automatically. Since this one has not been under review or approved, I still have the ability to edit some of the columns here to change any information that's needed if you want to allow that. So if we wanted to require everything is locked out so nothing can be changed, we can do that as well, as seen in the approved one. I have no ability to change any of these cells. And again, the attachments and comments are also based on you providing me, the contractor, access to those. So if you wanted to lock those out as well, we could support that. Again, since this is based on a single logged in user, whoever filled out that change order request form, Multiple contractors can come to a single request portal and submit the change order request, but they would only have access to their change orders here in the right panel to see the updates of where that change order request is in the process. So now moving to where all of this information then lands, we're going to jump back to the owner view. So as the contractor, I've gone ahead and submitted that change order request. All the information is coming through, and I have transparency as to what status that change order request is currently in. So moving on the kind of the back end from the owner side, I come into my change order request sheet for my project. All of those change orders that have been submitted for this specific projects lived within this sheet. If you have multiple contractors on a larger scale project, they can all use that same dashboard that we were seeing, and it would populate here as seen within this sheet. We have a few different contractors, but they're all landing in that same spot. So it creates a central repository to manage all of your change requests. From here, we can leverage our automations, reminders, and approvals to see when I have a new change order and who is being assigned to it. So as I come in here, all that information comes through, and I can assign this to a reviewer. We can auto assign if it goes directly to the owner. And then once that's completed, then the reviewer can have an automation in place to say a new change order. There we go. A new change order has been submitted. Can you look for approval? And this can be done in multiple different ways, as Angie addressed in Teams, things like that directly in your email. But from here, I have the notification panel on the left rail, and I have an approval workflow that's come through. So it's sending me all that necessary information regarding this specific change order that's come in. I can easily access that information along with the attachments that the contractor had sent over. And then from there, I can hit decline or approve. So I'm going to go ahead and approve this change order request since everything looks good. Again, I can send out a batch reminder as well. So if I wanted to do this like on every Friday to consolidate all of those different change orders coming in for the week, I can do that as well. Once that change order has been approved, then what is happening in the back end is it is actually triggering a workflow for a document to be created. So as we're seeing here, our envelope status now says sent. So what is happening is everything within the change order request that needs to be on the contract is automatically filling in a fillable PDF through our generate documents capability. With this capability, you can take any fillable PDF and utilize all of our columns that our contractor has filled out and automatically assign it to the fields within that fillable PDF. So we no longer have to go and copy and paste to a PDF. We don't have to transfer that information. It all can be automatically copied over. And then from there, DocuSign is connected. So it's automatically sending it and routing it through DocuSign to the allocated assigned contractor who submitted that change order request. So once it is sent and they receive it, whether in their email inbox or back on that dashboard that we'll be seeing in a minute, they're able to then access it and sign it, and it will update that status as approved and completed. This reduces manual duplicate entry of all of your data, eliminating any errors that can happen when transferring over into that contract document. And we have visibility into the statuses of all of those change orders. Additionally, once that document is signed, let's look at one of our completed change orders. It's going to automatically attach itself to that corresponding change order request row. So it will grab it there and have the completed change order request with the signature in place. So we have that single source of truth. We no longer have all of our documents living in siloed systems or within having to go through and search through our email for that one contract that we had signed, maybe a few weeks ago. We can have it all consolidated here. And as we know, with longer projects, sometimes we have hundreds or even thousands of change order requests that we'd want to keep track of. We can do it all within this single sheet and have all the contracts associated with that specific row, along with any attachments that were submitted by those contractors. So once that is completed, as the owner have gone ahead and reviewed it, approved it, had it sent out for signature, what does that interaction look like for the contractor? So the first step is you can go directly to your inbox and have that DocuSign complete request directly into your inbox. And from there, I can easily review the document, and our change order requests for our paint color changes have automatically filled out that PDF for me. And now I just have to sign my change order, finish my document. And what that will do is then update it within Smartsheet, as we were seeing, attaching it directly to the row, and then having access back to the contractor as well on their dashboard. So as a contractor, I can come back and have a running log of all of my change orders and have access to all of those DocuSigns as well as those attachments created through the change order process. So as the contractor is keeping track of all their change order requests and their information regarding that, we know that we're looking at the same information from the owner side as well, since it is in one single location. So jumping back, overall, we were able to submit a change order request as a contractor, have insights into the documentation status of our request while maintaining confidentiality and control of all the information that was being shared. So as a contractor, I had access to my specific change order requests, but as an owner, I have the ability to see all of those change orders regarding one project. Additionally, we reduced manual steps by utilizing automations such as Document Builder, sending it out with DocuSign, and also alerting our owners that a change order request has been added and needs to be approved. This enables us to operate more efficiently with a singular simplified process. Thank you all, and I will now hop over to any questions.
Or Neil too, if you had any thoughts, feel free to chime in if you've seen any of these used or use them yourself.
Thank you, Angie and Erica. Really, the key benefit from our perspective in employing Document Builder has been to take any existing process or any form, whether it's currently in Word or Excel, how it's being used today within an existing university structure, convert it to a fillable PDF, and analyze and understand the approval routing that might have previously existed through a multitude of places, file folder structures, having to take Word files, convert them in Bluebeam to a PDF, and then put it in DocuSign and move it in and out of all these different sources. Takes a significant amount of time to do what is realistically just a simple process, whether it's a change order request or an RFI or a submittal or a permit approval, you name it. We've used it to deploy an inspection request and approval workflow process using a form and signature approval within Document Builder. But realistically, it can be used to build a workflow for any process in setting up a templates with any type of fillable PDF, and then automate it into a workflow from beginning to end without ever leaving Smartsheet. And then the benefit is it would then tie into your data capture and the other processes that were talked about previously for feeding in then to your dashboarding on different types of metrics for your projects.
Hey, Ange, Erica, a couple questions. I see some common themes in the chat here, the Q&A. So one of those being just related to workflows and sort of what Neil is alluding to. Keep in mind, Smartsheet is a very flexible platform with no code. So when you might be coming from more rigid systems that don't allow you to create or modify your workflows as needed. Smartsheet allows you to set those up however it matches your needs. And so if you have a workflow process that's based off of a certain condition or a certain type of, let's say, a change order or a certain stage in a project, you can set those workflows up however it meets your needs and then modify them if you need to later, and then create different workflows or branching logic in your workflows. And again, it flexes to your needs instead of us trying to tell you how to do it. So just it seems like a common theme I've seen in a couple questions here. So I just wanted to call that out. Lots of questions about budget import. That's coming. We're going to talk about that here in a minute. So stay tuned for that. And then a lot of questions about activity log. There's a lot of ways to track last activity or activity over time or activity over all time in Smartsheet. There's activity log for every sheet and dashboard. You can export it, filter it. It happens automatically. That takes place no matter what. So that's always there. We mentioned the cell history a little bit ago, and just a lot of automated ways and others to track activity in Smartsheet. So definitely out there.
Excellent. Let me share my screen again. Okay, oops, sorry, faces. Okay, so now we, like Nate said, are going to talk about how to pull in data from external systems. The example we're going to talk about today is specifically for budget management, but this is a tool that can be used in a million different ways. So just keep that in mind. Some of the challenges we see, like similar themes here, is budgets are being tracked in different departments, different sources, different systems. So it's hard to get a cohesive view across all of those places. Because of that, you're potentially working with inaccurate or outdated numbers. Again, that data relevancy piece. And then when you do get all of the numbers, it's so time consuming to consolidate everything into a single location. And there's really no source of truth. So our answer to that is Data Shuttle. What Data Shuttle allows you to do, similar to workflows, it's a workflow for pulling in data. So you can map your data from different systems to move into a targeted Smartsheet sheet based on a filtering criteria. So you can filter so that not all of the data comes in, or only certain data comes in based on a unique identifier. And really, this is going to solve a lot of those really complex challenges of all of your data living in other places. The other benefit is that this can be automated. So let's go back to our project dashboard. There we go. And one of the pieces here we've got is our budget sheet. So if I open this up, and actually I did want to highlight too, I did some calculations. I ran some numbers while Erica was speaking. So now we are actually under budget, which is great. But that is because we haven't factored in all of our change orders for this week. So if we come to our budget sheet, we can see that our change orders are a 0 value. If I open up the spreadsheet, then this is actually pulled, from Erica's example. I've only pulled in the things that are approved, and we can see all of our total change order values. But again, this is pulling from another system. We've got our accounting system, finance, all of that is being done in another tool. I still, as a project manager, need that visibility in my Smartsheet to make accurate decisions as it comes to, do we have the budget for this? Can I tell my team to start working on this or to send out alerts or reminders? So what I'm going to do is attach that exact change order sheet, change order request summary. And there we go. What it's going to do is we've got our cost codes here. And so in this sheet, I've got that same cost code. And so what Data Shuttle is going to do is it's going to say, anytime this cost code matches a cost code in our budget ledger, then go ahead and map and pull in just this information and the description of changes. So that's the other benefit, just like everything else in Smartsheet, but with Data Shuttle specifically, is you can have a really large data set that you're pulling from a CSV or from any other system into a CSV. You do not have to spend the time formatting and getting that into the right structure before you import it into Smartsheet. You can leave it as is. I could do the exact same thing with this version, even though it's a different format, because we're really just mapping the numbers. We're saying when these things two match, go ahead and pull in the value. And so I can say I want to just pull in these columns, or I want to pull in a different set of columns. Or if I had that entire list that Erica was working with, I could set up a filter and say, I only want to pull in the things that are actually approved. I didn't need to have to self-filter that ahead of time. So when we think about time saving, Data Shuttle is huge for that. You don't have to do a split screen and try and marry the data across, two different systems. And so while Data Shuttle is running, let me refresh this. And we can also open this up and look at our workflows. So we can see I've got this workflow running. It's still in progress. It is real time, but it can take up to a couple minutes. And so typically we can see that it is, less than a minute, but sometimes it can take 2 or 3 minutes. So we'll just refresh that. And we can see that it is still running. And we can come back and, oops, there we go. Come back to the sheet and give that a minute or two. But what we'll see is that when these do match up, when it does pull in that value, because we've already got formulas and our sheet set up in Smartsheet, we don't need to do anything else. All of these calculations are going to self-automate and retabulate and be correct. And then that means that our project dashboard is also going to update for our budget or total spend versus actual, any of the other metrics that we may be capturing. So let's go ahead and just check this one more time. And we may need to come back, but while this is running, we can go through a couple of the other slides and then I'll come back and we can check on the Data Shuttle piece. So once we see how it works, you will see that the main takeaways are you can centralize data. It is really easy to pull in data from several different systems to create that single source of truth, which means I used to work education adjacent, and silos are not a joke. So even if you do have teams working in silos, that's fine. That's not going to disrupt your process. You're still going to be able to easily collaborate and make sure that all of these different teams, regardless of their potential silos, are still going to be operating from the same single source of truth of data to get their work done, which lastly leads to meaning you're going to be able to operate more efficiently. There's not going to be those unnecessary bottlenecks while you're waiting for someone else to pull you a report or pull you data or manually update each spreadsheet. And in turn, especially on projects that are this large and this costly, more efficiency means more money saved. So it's going to actually save you money in the long run. Some of the other main use cases that we see for Data Shuttle are similar to pulling in budget information, pulling in invoices, or updating systems from accounts payable. Being able to track hours if you're tracking that for resources, and basically any system that you can export a CSV from, you can upload and use using Data Shuttle. So being able to get those updates from any ERP or CRM systems that are purpose-built for those things. Smartsheet's not trying to replace that, but we do want to create the right level of visibility for all of our project managers and potential other audiences. So being able to pull just the appropriate data from those systems into Smartsheet is going to allow us to do that. And so let's come back and take a look, and we can see that did run. So let's open up our budget sheet, and here we can see all of our change orders did update. which means everything else updated, our variance updated. And then if we go back to our project dashboard and update this or refresh it, not updating anything, we can see that now our budget has changed, that we are a lot closer to spent. And again, because we're in this connected environment, that means when we go to our portfolio dashboard and check our budget portfolio, this also changes. Where if we're looking at our budget expansion or overall spent, I can refresh this. It might have already refreshed on its own. Yeah, sorry about that. But it's that connected environment. So as changes, again, I didn't even have to type anything. I pulled in data from another system, our budget sheet updated, our project dashboard updated, and our portfolio budget also automatically updated. It took a couple minutes and I could talk and look at other screens and do other things while all of that was happening in the background. So you're always going to be able to know very quickly what needs your attention and have the bandwidth to focus on those things. And that is our data shuttle presentation. Nate or Neil, any thoughts there or questions you want to bubble up from the audience?
Yeah, just the key takeaway from my perspective, again, with Data Shuttle, it's one of the, the applications for it is one of the most common types of outreach we get from our clients. And that's how to integrate existing tracking tools, accounting tools in Workday or PeopleSoft or Oracle, or even facilities management tools like AIM or AssetWorks, and link all those multiple disparate, data sources that are generating actual costs or areas where you're pulling from current information of actual costs into a single place. And Data Shuttle allows you to do that quickly and provide that single source of truth rather than having to wait days or weeks to contact a bunch of different stakeholders that might be working in different departments within your organization and then compile that information. And by this point, now once you've done that, that data is old, right? So your ability to identify risks early and then act on those risks and employs great confidence on the budget and schedule health of your projects and programs.
Excellent. And sorry, Nate, before you jump in, and I'm going to pass it off to both Neil and Nate, but I'm just going to open up a quick short poll. It's just one question, but just let us know if you want your account team to follow up with you, whether you do have additional questions about Data Shuttle or getting some of the stuff added to your plans. But that's all I've got. I will pass it over to you two.
No problem. Thanks, Ange. One question that is in the chat here, Neil, I'm sure you won't have a problem sharing your contact info for someone who wanted to follow up with you directly. So we'll definitely make sure that gets sent out. There was a question, I think is a really good one here in the chat about Data Shuttle, asking if it could, quote, undo things from a prior import or if you screwed things up. And the answer is yes. So Data Shuttle, you can have it delete rows from a recent import file from the sheet if it doesn't match the import file, or you can set a data flow to replace all rows. So if you need to go back to a prior version of a file and you want to go back to that, Data Shuttle can do that. And then kind of a little secret behind the scenes use of Data Shuttle, it doesn't get talked about often, but it's really powerful, is you can use it to update your drop-down menus. So if you have drop-down lists in your sheet, you can actually use Data Shuttle to keep that up to date as like department codes or funding codes change or something like that, where you just want to update it, make sure it's available in your drop-down list. It's pretty powerful. So very, very. I think at this point in time, Neil, run through your portion and we'll go from there.
Yeah, and thanks, Nate. And one of the things I'm going to talk about is kind of the most common types of outreach or pain points that we hear from our higher education clients. And it's, as I just mentioned, it's usually related to the relevancy of budget and schedule data on the projects, and that the teams that are working on those projects are providing, to the decision makers at the owner's level on their projects or programs even. But that biggest frustration tends to be that the owner might need to talk to 4 or 5 different people in different areas of the organization in order to compile that data. And then again, by the time they've received it, vetted it, you know, that actionable moment has passed, and then they need to start all over again in compiling it, you know, once again to make sure it's current, which really hamstrings an owner's ability to make informed decisions based, you know, on the understanding of that data and what risks that might present to their project. And that, you know, that frustration is usually founded in the whether or not an owner client has the ability to have a solid understanding of where their contingency stands on a project, what the forecasted change order expenditures might be, or PCOs, you know, and how are their budgets on soft cost performing versus the actuals on each of those elements. And as we were seeing in some of the samples that Angie provided, you know, how you're managing or measuring each one of those individual elements of, say, a soft cost based on an account code, and information you might have available today to do and capture, and then, you know, mirror against budgets that you might be setting up at the beginning of a project. But the biggest obstacle for that is usually, you know, and how you're getting these disparate legacy tools, whether it's Oracle, PeopleSoft, AIM, AccessWorks, Excel sheets, etc. And oftentimes it's even another, you know, construction contract management solution that you've already deployed, Procore, eBuilder, PMWeb, just to name a few. They're not often customizable to align with how your institution operates, or these tools just might have too many clicks to perform simple functions such as RFI or change generation. But what we found is that Smartsheet's been an excellent solution to pull together all of that information using Data Shuttle and Document Builder to create, you know, streamlined processes and automate those in a clean and crisp dashboarding, you know, within Smartsheet to provide trusted current data for project leaders to have the confidence that they need to ensure successful project outcomes. So, you know, Nate or Angie, I'll turn it back over to you both. Thank you for the opportunity to share my story.
Thanks, Neil. I think we've got a couple minutes before Nate wraps us up. Are there questions that make sense for us to answer for the group as a whole, Nate or Joe or anyone else?
No, I don't think so. I think we're in good shape. There were a few questions just around, you know, contact information, which we can make sure that we follow up with. And there will be a form at the end that you can fill out, you know, that can also help us follow up with some specifics. But no, overall, I think we're in a good spot with the questions.
Excellent. I'll pass it to you. Oh.
A lot of really great questions that were submitted today, so appreciate everyone's engagement and putting the really thoughtful questions in there, and to the team behind the scenes providing the answers. So we'll be sure there's a follow-up with attendees and registrants today with the recording, but also with you know.
Oh, Nate, we just lost your audio for a second. No.
How about now?
Now we can hear you.
Sorry about that. So I was just saying, we'll be providing a follow-up recording and all the information, Q&A, things like that for today's webinar. So you'll get a copy of that. Any other questions or anything from the other panelists before we?
Okay. Oh, sorry, we lost you again, Nate.
I'm having audio issues, obviously, so I think I'm going to kick it to you, Ange, to wrap us up.
That's fine. Let me get back to my screen and share. Excellent. So mostly we just wanted to say thank you all for your time this morning or this afternoon, depending on where you're joining us from. But kind of everything, I know we saw a few different ways to use Smartsheet throughout this entire capital construction process. But I think the theme at the heart of all of them is how Smartsheet is one, really easy to use. Once it's set up and deployed, the end user experience is incredibly easy because it's so flexible, but that makes the adoption really easy, which means people are more likely to use it. It's going to be easier to collaborate because people are using it, because the collaboration is happening. That means the visibility is going to happen naturally because the tool is only as good as when people use it. So being able to have people in the tool, and then on top of that connected environment where Smartsheet kind of brings everything together, whether you're pulling in data from other systems, whether you're sharing conversations from email, and having that tracked in Smartsheet, your audit logs, all of that is in one place. And then that roll up happens automatically. So you're going to have portfolio visibility, project visibility, regardless of what audience you are, you will have what you need to get things done. And then on top of that, the thing that I think we probably didn't mention today was Smartsheet also has a mobile app. So again, thinking about that adoption and flexibility, if you've got folks who are out in the field, they can submit RFIs, change order requests. They can do all of that documentation, take pictures at the site from their mobile app. They don't have to have access to Smartsheet necessarily. They can upload a form. Forms are available offline, which I think Erica did mention. So making that really easy for folks, they don't have to be at their desktop. This is a tool that is going to go with you. And then the last piece, again, that global updates is huge. So as the project evolves, and as if your overall process does evolve as well, global updates is going to allow that change to happen really easily. It's not going to be a tool that is stagnant and force you into a way of life or create some Band-Aid and duct tape workarounds. It's going to be a tool that's going to be effortless and seamless in how you execute on your work. And so with that, we just wanted to say thank you. I think we've answered quite a few questions. If there are more questions, we will stay on. What time is it? For the next 7 minutes or any of those. Definitely, here's a QR code if you wouldn't mind scanning it. It's a very short survey. Just to give any feedback, let us know if you want to reach out or if you would like to attend more of these, what sort of topics would be helpful, if there's a deeper dive of anything. We really, I don't know, I love working at Smartsheet. It's just really fun to be able to help people work more efficiently. I'm an organizational freak, and it's just, a good color coding filing system there's nothing I love more. So being able to help folks, that's what we want to do. And if there's something that is going to benefit you, let us know how we can put that together. We are more than happy to meet you where you're at and make things that are applicable. So thank you so much. Really appreciate your time. Everyone's busy or hopefully gearing up for vacation in summer, but we appreciate it and look forward to hearing from you soon. I'm going to go off mute, but I will stay on for the next 10 minutes until 11:30 if people do want to come off and ask questions or put them in the chat.